Good morning in Nepal, evening in the United States, and good afternoon rest of the world. Today is the second day of our seminar for public speaking. Before I go to today's program, which is wonderful, is set up as a mock presentation, not a mock actually, it's a formal presentation followed by panel discussion. Before I go for today's program, let's recap what we did yesterday. Most of you know we talked about how to give a public speech and how to organize. First thing we talked about is how to conquer your fear. As we all know, the biggest obstacle in giving a public speaking is our internal fear. So which you heard from our distinguished DMT speaker, Batuk Bista, on how to conquer fear. The one thing I wanted to say about fear is from a nice quote I saw for one author said, fear is not there to scare you. Fear is only letting you know that it's something worth having it. If there's no fear there, then you don't even need it. So take it as a positively and handle it. Then also we learn about how to recognize your audience. If you look at the history of public speakers, one of the biggest disaster or something could go wrong is not to recognizing your audience. There always has to be meeting of the mind between the speaker and audience. And especially today's very sensitive world, you have to worry about, or you have to have an expert knowledge on your audience cultural background, their nationalistic feelings, as well as the educational standard what they have. Once you have to incorporate those issues also on your speech. Then also we discussed about as a part number 3, which I did, was preparation and practice. In the preparation side, we mainly discussed about mechanical issues, stage management, lights, miking system, accessory devices like projectors, and all those issues, how we can incorporate in our speech. Those are also very important thing, and also practice. And finally, we had a speaker who talked about how to organize your speech. Basically, what he said, there are 3 parts in every speech: introduction, body, and conclusion. Introduction means, tell us what you wanted to say. And the body is, say what you have to say. And conclusion is, say what you just said. So if you, in those things, once you match it, your speech comes out perfectly. So today, let's go to today's program. Today, I'm gonna hand over to our moderator, Batuk Bista now. He will conduct a slideshow presentation from one of our guests, and then he will also conduct a panel discussion on those issues. Mr. Batuk Bista, please take it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vlaswadaya, President UNCON. It is my great pleasure to kick off our second day. I hope you all enjoyed our day 1 and found the programs we did yesterday for 1.5 hours a productive one. Although we had some technical problems here and there, but still we managed to deliver what we wanted to deliver to all of your benefit. Yesterday we had about 300 plus participants from around the world, majority of them from Nepal. Some are from Canada, some are from Hong Kong, and some even from US besides ourselves. It was a diversified group of people, some researchers, professors. I'm sorry we could not bring our some of our distinguished guests to the panel yesterday. Since the way we designed our program is to deliver as much as good information to our participants on uninterrupted way. So that was the main objective. That's why we had to design our webinar in such a way. So we'll have many more opportunities in the future where we can have an interactive session. So please bear with us. and follow what we are trying to do today and even tomorrow. With that said, I'm going to introduce our panel list today. And before I do that, I would like to welcome our distinguished guests today here, and if we have anyone in attendees. So don't feel bad, we haven't forgotten about you. Okay, let me share. Hopefully my share this time will not break things like it did yesterday. Okay, in our moderator list, myself as a moderator, and I have my partner in crime, Dr. Ishwari Prasad Kararia. He's associate professor at Agriculture and Forestry University, Nepal. He's also a director at Center for Biotechnology, Agriculture and Forestry University. He is engaged in various research projects related to milk quality. And he's also my counterpart in Nepal to coordinate this whole program, which was made possible for you today. Today's demo presenter, Dr. Rajan Gimire, is assistant professor at New Mexico State University, USA. He had a postdoctoral training from Oregon State University, USA, and PhD from University of Wyoming. He leads a multidisciplinary, nationally and internationally recognized research program on soil management. Received the Emerging Scientist Award from the Western Society of Crop Science in 2020. Let's welcome Dr. Rajan Gimire. And we have our distinguished panelists who will be giving their wisdom, knowledge, thoughts for your benefit today. I mean, we are just a moderator here to facilitate this, but majority of the inputs will come from these distinguished panelists. Our panelists are today Dr. Meghnad Parazali, PhD. He is Resident Fellow Professor, Texas A&M University, USA. He's also the president of Nepalese Association, Nepalese Agricultural Professional Association of Americas. He is a project leader of cropping system, cotton entomology program, overseeing projects in cropping system, integrated pest management since 2001. Plenary and keynote speaking roles in 20 countries, published over 450 research articles, including 150 referred journal articles. Founding editor-in-chief of Global Journal of Agriculture and Allied Science since 2017. And as I mentioned, he's the president, Association of Nepalese Agriculture Professionals of America. Our next distinguished panelist, Professor Navaraj Devkota, Professor of Animal Science at Agriculture and Forestry University, Nepal. Directorate of Research and Extension at AFU, Editor-in-Chief, Journal of Agriculture and Forestry University, also known as JAFU at AFU. Technical Editor, Nepalese Journal of Agriculture Sciences. Advisor, Nepal Journal of Biotechnology. And our last not least, distinguished panelist, Mr. Hitesh Valala. He is a distinguished Toastmaster. That's the award you can achieve in Toastmasters after spending countless of years and giving countless of speeches and leadership roles. This is the highest honor you can get in Toastmasters International. He's been active in Toastmasters since past many years, and I came to know a few years ago. Since then, I have been deeply impressed with his leadership styles, his motivations, and so on. He's also a founder, ILX Academy, developing leadership and public speaking skills for youth. He is the immediate past club growth director at Toastmasters International, who is responsible for creating a growth of Toastmasters International. Actively engaged in Toastmasters International, also a motivational speaker. So with this group of people, today you'll hear a lot of valuable information that you can utilize in your rest of your life. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's my honor to welcome our demo presenter, Dr. Rajan Ghimire. Dr. Rajan Ghimire. So just before he starts, I would like to give you some glimpse of today's program, how it will progress. Dr. Ghimire will present his demo presentation. He will show all of us how a technical presentation should look like, especially for those who are doing their master's or PhD program in agriculture sector. So what kind of information we should include in our presentation, how it should be presented, and many things. So pay close attention. After his presentation, we'll start our panelist discussion, whether he did good in his presentation, what are the good things he did, and what are the areas he needs to improve on those. So please pay attention closely in his presentation and the discussion afterwards. Thank you. Now back to you, Dr. Ghimire. All yours now.
Let me share my screen first.
Yeah. And critically you listen गर्नुपर्छ मैले त्यो सेसनहरुले सुन्ने भने यो लाउँछु फेरि यो लाइस फेरि आवाज आउँदैन
Thank you, Mr. Bista, for a nice introduction. Today I'm going to talk about cover crops for improving soil health in southern high plains of USA. I would like to acknowledge USA Nepal Community Outreach Network, Agriculture and Forestry University Nepal, Association of Nepalese Agricultural Professionals of Americas for organizing this event and giving me opportunity to share my research presentation here with this forum. I would also like to acknowledge my research team members who have contributed in this presentation on different aspects, field to lab to preparing this talk. So with that, and then all the participants who is interested to learn all these presentations, and then bear with me for the next 10-15 minutes. So in going into a brief overview of my presentation, I will talk briefly about soil health and cover cropping. I will go brief objective of my presentation, talk about study site, treatments, measurements. Then I will give a snapshot of my results and summarize my presentation. First, to talk about soil health. Soil health indicates a continued capacity of soil to function in an ecosystem boundary. Like our human body, we have a physical structure, we have different chemicals in our body, and then microbes are regulating some of the processes in our body. Likewise, in soil have a physical structure, they have a chemical constituents, and then there are numerous microorganisms who is continuously working on that physical structure and chemical composition to regulate soil processes. When that physical, chemical, and biological processes come together in a way that sustains crop production and also provide other ecosystem services. For example, soil also controls soil erosion. It sequesters carbon or accumulates carbon from atmosphere to soil, regulates nutrient cycling, and support clean air and for our breathing and our environment. So all these services, when a soil can provide those services, that soil is in a perfect condition or in healthy, good health. So that is what we are talking about when we talk soil health. When we talk soil health of US, specifically Western US, on this figure you can see this blue area, that is the Western US. This area was under a grassland system until early 1900s. On that grassland system, we had deep-rooted plants, shallow-rooted plants, very dense-rooted, and then very sparse-rooted plants. So there was enormous diversity in plants, and then those diversity regulate all these ecosystem processes I was talking earlier, and then maintain a good balance. That was a productive system, and then that regulate all those environmental services. But about 100 years ago, when pioneers or Europeans started moving from eastern part of US to western part of US, then they started cultivation, early with horse, and then later on, last 30-40 years, mechanization. And then in that last 100 years, our agriculture has changed so rapidly that we are highly mechanized, very sophisticated production system, but at the same time, there are a lot of changes in agricultural landscape. For example, if you look at this graph, you can see soil organic matter here. And in the first 50 years of cultivation, the soil organic matter content decreased by about 50%. And you might think, why this soil organic matter is important? Now, soil organic matter is a kind of backbone of healthy soil. It's a very vital component of maintaining a lot of soil processes. So that is very important component in maintaining soil health. Another component you can look on the different locations here, soil nitrogen. That is also decreasing more or less on the similar magnitude. So that means nutrient content, which is required for plant growth, that is also going down. So this change in basic building block of soil and then also nutrient content have a big impact on agricultural production and overall soil health in this region. So our idea was, can we really improve that soil health, which has been degraded in the last 100 years? There are multiple ways, but we pick cover cropping. So here I'm using this cover cropping term. Those are the crops that are grown for a short period of time just for improving soil. Those are not harvested for grain, not for forage, or any other economical value. So they are terminated to just help the soil to build the soil health. So, and then we designed a concept like how this cover cropping and diversifying our cropping system with cover crops can improve soil health. They can provide soil cover. That can increase organic matter. Like I said, that is a building block of our healthy soil. Microbial community, which regulate different soil processes, and soil aggregation or good soil structure. And then down the road, it impacts several soil processes and ultimately helps in building good and healthy soil that support sustainable crop production. So that is the concept we are working on this project. So our objective on this project was to evaluate effect of diverse cover crops, those different crops and mixers on various soil health indicators, specifically related to soil organic matter cycling, soil microbial community structure and function. And I'm showing on this triangle, this soil organic matter have a different components. For example, some fraction of soil organic matter that can decompose within 2 years of time frame or less than 2 years, and then supply nutrients to crop or to microbes. And then there is another pool which takes 2 to 10 years to decompose and then supply nutrient in the longer term. And then another fraction, which is called a passive fraction, that stays more than 10 years, sometimes up to 100,000 or 10,000 years. And then that is really the long-term fertility and long-term sustainability of our soil system. And in this project, we are basically focusing on this green triangle, which is more responsive, rapidly changing, and then helps in supporting crop production. So that was the goal, to look at that component and then relate that with soil health. Where did we do this study? If you look on this US map, New Mexico is on this southwest corner. And then on this southwest corner, you can see this star, eastern part of New Mexico. There is Agricultural Science Center at Clovis, and we conducted this study on this location. This location is very hot and a dry environment with low inherent fertility soil. That means the soil have a low organic matter content and low production potential per se. And then annual total precipitation of this area is only 457 millimeter. That means the whole year in New Mexico, whatever amount of precipitation we can get in one big rain in Nepal. If you get a big rainstorm in Nepal, 2-3 hours, we can get, sometimes we get 400 to 500 millimeter precipitation. So that is very low precipitation for a year, hot and dry environment. So we are talking that kind of situation. And our treatments on this study was fallow, which indicate no cover cropping. Fallow means that there is no cover crop all throughout the year. Pea as a cover crop, oat as a cover crop, canola, it's a mustard family, that's also a cover crop. Pea and oat mixture, pea and canola mixture, pea, oat, canola mixture, and pea, oat, canola, barley, hairy veg, and forage radish. That is called 6 species mixture or more diverse mixture. I will talk in a little bit. And maybe this figure is a little bit complicated, but if you follow through, there are 3 phases of crop rotation or 3 years in rotation. So we grow 2 crops in 3 years on this dry environment. In Nepal, within a year, we can grow 2 to 3 crops. But here, only 2 crops in 3 years. For example, here you can see wheat is planted in October of first year and harvested in June or July of second year. And then that whole land is fallow for almost another year. And sorghum is planted for 5 months, and then again, long fallow period. So our concept was to put cover crop to break that long fallow period and then help soil to boost its health and fertility status. So that is the idea we are working. And we did to look at the soil health, whether this cover cropping is working or not. Then we look at soil samples from 0 to 15 centimeter soil depth using a core sampler. And we measured various soil health indicators, for example, soil organic carbon as an index of soil organic matter, potentially mineralizable carbon, another fraction of soil carbon, microbial biomass, how much microbe is there, and then community, what kind of microbes are there in those soils. After collecting all that data for almost like 5 years, we did a statistical analysis using a statistical analysis system. And look at these different indicators of soil health. For example, first I'm going to talk about mineralizable carbon. This mineralizable carbon is that fraction of soil organic matter which decompose very fast, less than 2 years, and then supply nutrients needed for crops and also release some of the carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. When we look at that mineralizable soil organic carbon, you can see the first column is fallow plot, and then all others are cover crop plots. Here you can see significant increase in mineralizable carbon with cover cropping. What I'm talking significant difference is those different letters. If you see same letter, those treatments are not different, but there are if different letters with those bars, then those treatments are significantly different. So that way, we also look how much change is that. Now there was a 20 to 83% increase in mineralizable carbon with cover cropping on this dry, hot, dry environment. And we look also what may be the role of microbes, how much microbes is there with cover cropping, because there is a tremendous increase in mineralizable carbon. If you look, very similar trend, but only 11 to 34% increase in microbial biomass. So in this case, microbial biomass is increasing, but proportionate change is not observed. So we were also interested, maybe what might be on that microbial biomass. So we look at microbial community composition. And this figure, itself, it might not make much sense because I'm showing different dots with the different treatments. But what I am trying to show is that different dots indicate different composition or different structure, different parts of the community. For example, fallow treatments with this red dot have one type of microbial community. But when we introduce cover crops like pea, oat, canola, and then different mixtures, then those microbial community slowly changes into these treatments. And we could see biggest change in oat and 6 species mixture treatments. So this biggest change, and we were looking into data, what might be causing that biggest change? Oat produced highest biomass as a cover crop. So that means there is a more input in soil to support those microbes and then help improving soil health. And then this 6 species mixture, that was a more diverse. That means the food for microbe there was enormous diversity, like our food. If you eat different variety of food, you can get vitamins, you can get minerals, you can get all kind of things we need for body. So same thing applies in soil. So this diversified food system. Then increase microbial community. And we also look at what may be the most changed in this system. And you can see fungal component, that was the major driver of change in microbial community. And then we look whether that makes sense or not when different treatments. You can see this oat and 6 species mixture, which had either more diversity or more food was provided. In that case, there is a highest increase in fungal component. So that means that supplied nutrients from these different cover crops were translated into fungal biomass, and then that regulated this nutrient cycling processes. We also did some observations in the field. We did not collect data, but we did some observations in the field. For example, earthworm, which is also considered as a visual indicators of improvement in soil health. With cover cropping, there was an increase in earthworm population in cover crop treatments. And we also look at some legume cover crops. There was a nitrogen fixing bacteria. Those were active, and then there was a higher nodulation on those treatments. So that means there is a change in visual observation as well with cover cropping. And of course, there was a lot of roots and then microbial activity, mesofauna activity going on, but I did not present all that data today. To summarize today's talk, soil health degradation is a major challenge for High Plains region of USA. And cover cropping has a potential to improve soil health by increasing organic matter components. For example, that mineralizable soil organic matter, and microbial community responses, either increasing on fungal component or increasing in total microbial biomass. So that there was an improvement in soil health. And specifically, the change in soil health was driven by fungal community. That fungal component was a major driver of change in soil health. So that was what we see on this study. With that, I would like to thank you all again. And then I would also like to thank my funding organizations for supporting this research. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gimire. It was a wonderful presentation. Just to let all audience know, we have about 280 participants at the moment, and we'll start the panel discussion after this presentation. Now, I'd like to kick off this discussion, and I'd like to start with Dr. Parajli. Give us a brief overview from your side, whether the presentation intended objectives are met, the delivery objectives are met, the presenter fulfilled the objectives. Give us a brief overview from your perspective.
I may be biased. Thank you, by the way, for this opportunity that I could critique young scientists' wonderful presentation, and it's not very easy task. And you had introduced earlier about his qualification. He's an award-receiving scientist. He's just not an assistant professor in a well-built campus in USA. He's very accomplished scientist, and I wish we had two presentations today. One, eloquent presentation such as we just observed, and one not so. So we could compare and contrast. But I will try to. What the challenge we have is as a seasoned scientist in this business, I will find some issue with any presentation. And I challenge my colleagues to find issues in my presentation, no matter what I do. So with that, first of all, kudos to Dr. Gimire. That was a wonderful presentation. And I think that the key of any presentation is, for example, if you are talking about soil science research, and if I am plant pathology researcher, I should be able to understand at least some of it. If nothing, at least the introductory part, and then take-home messages. So I think you delivered on that. But I will also emphasize that even though you said summary at the end, even after summary, I prefer, and people differ with me, but I prefer that the presentation at least kind of highlight one, maybe maximum of two take-home messages. So they have that in their mind going home, okay, yeah, the guy gave 15-minute talk, lots of things, but do I say, okay, SSM treatment and oats, are those the best, or the canola? Because canola did something, but the oats and SSM did something else. So which one I go by? So you need to highlight one of it. This is the take-home message. You got to go with that. Okay, that's one comment. And I hope I'll have opportunity after discussing on, after the points we give. But I assume Dr. Gimire purposefully left some typos and this and that, and that's not Dr. Gimire. So. And I want to see, I have zero tolerance on typos and things like that, okay? So I'm very particular about that. And the consistency, like title case, like uppercase, lowercase, like you had all throughout, very first alphabet of first word, and the title was capital, all small, that's fine. But I want to see consistently that throughout. For example, let's go to slide number 10. Can you fire up slide number 10? I'll stop in just a couple of minutes just to give the example so we can kick off the discussion. Slide number 10, fire up. Here on this, you have soil sampling and laboratory analysis, all are different. Then go to the next slide. That's different.
Yes.
And that's not, does it change the tone of the talk or the quality of talk? No. But professional presentation, we should strive to have no inconsistency and so forth. Let's go all the way to the summary slide, and then I'll stop for a while. Here, there are a lot of issues for students. I'm assuming, I think Dr. Gimiri is mischief here. I think he purposefully did it. Look at the fonts. You can't have three or at least two different fonts. The last one is different than the first two anyway. And then the second sentence is I cover quotes should have been cropped. Okay, and there are a few others, but you got my point. So because it is a demo presentation, I'm assuming he's kind of throwing some things to see whether a seasoned professor can see those things. And I take a pride in finding those things. But excellent presentation. I hope all close to 300 folks watching this presentation will learn from this. The visual, the combination of photos, pictures, and arrows, and cartoons, and the text, and so forth. I'll stop right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Parazali. I'd like to have a similar question to Dr. Devkota. What do you want to comment on the good part, and what are the improvements do you think he should have in this presentation? Looks like Dr. Devkota is muted right now. Let's understand from the Toastmaster world. Mr. Hitesh, what do you think? I know it may be too technical for us people like me and you. When we hear and see those technical terms, it might just go away from over the head. But as a Toastmaster, a seasoned, trained public speaker, what do you think? What did he do on the good side, and what do you think he should have improved certain things while he presented the past 15 minutes?
It will be my pleasure. Dr. Kimire, it was a wonderful presentation, great details, great slides with pictures. Now, any presentation, whether it is technical, research, or motivational, there are two key things that I look for. One is, how are you building relationship with the audience? How are you building relationship with the audience? And the second is, what is the value you are providing with this presentation, right? So in terms of improvement, you could have said that US farming industry is $700 billion every year. Now that puts some value that, wow, these are big numbers. And the research that you are doing, how is it going to impact? The soil quality reduction that you talked about, how is it impacting the economy and the numbers and the crop? And then with your research, what will be the outcome? So that's the value. So you can add some numbers around that. Let's talk about the relationship building with the audience. It's always about stories. It's always about stories. And I cannot emphasize it enough. When you were explaining the history and you were saying that within 50 years, the soil quality goes down by 50%. And when you talked about the Europeans coming in and you had that in the slides, my ears went up like a dog because that caught my attention. There were some stories there. Right? So it's always good to back up your content with those stories. What I would suggest is bring that story from the middle into somewhere in beginning. Whenever we start speaking, no matter what it is, the first 20 seconds are the most important. You have those valuable 20 seconds to either hook your audience or lose their attention. You did use those 20 seconds to thank your team and some other initial introductory things. Drop them out. For example, you may want to start like this. Did you know that in 50 years, the soil quality can reduce by 50%. I am going to tell you about the research that I and my team have done to improve the quality that will not only impact the crop, but it will result in X billion dollar of increase in the crop production, right? So now that is a starting point. You just have the audience attention, and then you add your story of the Europeans and just a little bit reorganization, but overall wonderful presentation. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I am outsider, but still I learned a lot from this presentation. So great job. Thank you, Dr. Gibere.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Valala. That was very wonderful feedback for the presenter as well as all participants who are watching this presentation from their end. Dr. Devkota, can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to ask a similar question to you from a faculty, from professor, from a faculty point of view. You have guided so many students throughout your teaching profession. What do you think about this presentation? I mean, what did he do, the good part, and what he can do to improve so that it can be even better?
Thank you. Thank you very much for this good opportunity. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Dr. Rajan. You know, it's a matter of pride to me. You know, historically, I'm just feeling a kind of thrilling environment. You know, long ago, I had taught Dr. Gimere in his graduate studies about how to deliver a seminar. What a fantastic moment. After so long years, now I'm here to really evaluate, analyze, and then observe his progress. The curve is really on the apex. I'm really glad. Thank you, Dr. Gimre. Overall, it was an excellent presentation. You know, when someone make a comments, always there exists some rules for improvement and also for some kind of, you know, the problems related things that you can ask the questions. Always there is space for these sort of things because there is nothing like a perfect. You know, it's a kind of things that people keep on practicing, and on the basis of practice, the people can develop their skills, and then it's a matter of the kind of psychology also, whether you can take up audience into your control or not, and then whether the people are following. It's something very difficult to say exactly. Now, in this demo, to make the story short, I don't want to repeat what exactly our very experienced and then, you know, the renowned, the panelists right now, they talk about the positive parts and then the little bit improvement areas. So I don't want to repeat. Personally, to me, it's more or less similar to the earlier comments. It's difficult for the first thing because if the nature of audience is heterogeneous, that is the difficult part for presenting a seminar in the audiences. For example, if the topic is so clear and then, you know, it's a common topic and you can escape a lot of things in your preparation, introduction and those things. But now here, it was a really technical, and then he had a very hard time to come up into the background information. So I think he spent a little bit more time in introduction. So had there been homogeneous sort of audiences, he would have rather shortcut the introduction and then focus more onto the major results parts and then come to the summary or the conclusions. That's the one thing he can improve, but I can understand the tragedy of all these things because it's very difficult. In fact, if I were him, I'd also have a similar problem. Only one thing, what I can still talk to Dr. Rajan is that he could a little bit faster his presentation. He was a little bit slow in my opinion because time is very critical, you know. He took about more than 20 minutes plus time, but the area was very technical, I can understand. But that's the only things. If he little bit increase the speed of his presentation, shortcut the little bit complication of the introduction and come to the common point of the introduction and clearly highlight the objective and go straight to the findings with a little bit more on the materials. I think he spent a little bit more time on the materials and then data collection process, but the rest of the things is excellent. I also agree that rather than giving the summary points here, summary points is important for a lecture. You know, if you are giving very important topics to the audiences, then at the end, you would like to give some of the very important summary points. But in these sort of technical things, rather the take-home message or the conclusion would be better. I think these are only for comments. I know that it's very difficult, but I'm really proud of the presentation of Dr. Rajan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you, Professor Dakota and all panelists for your constructive feedbacks and then suggestions, and then we learn a lot. This is public speaking, not only public speaking training or public speaking course. Here we are, most of the students are listening us, and then they are going to defend their thesis and dissertation. So we are focusing on high-level students or master or PhD level students as well, and then bachelor level or final students, and they almost are going to graduate. So in this context, I would like to ask Dr. Devgota, and then the public speaking and presentation skill allow the scientists, students to share their research findings effectively with their seniors, with their students or peers, and it is chance to get feedbacks effectively and then learn new idea. Unfortunately, most of the presentation public speaking demonstrate poor competence. Do you think so? Or scenario is different in Nepalese context or AFU? What do you think, Dr. Dakota? Okay, I will go to Professor Parajuli. Do you think this in student level, their demonstration, their students demonstrate their presentation or public speaking demonstrate poor competence? Do you think so, or this is different in international scenario or in the US?
I would say that you know, it's difficult to compare. It's more like apple and oranges, comparing Nepalese student scenarios in Nepalese graduate students and people in the US. Let me finish remarks and then I'll yield to Dr. Devkota. I said this because in US there is you know, much more competition and training is also, you know, there is a lot more stress as a graduate student. They cannot afford not having some level of public speaking skills. They may not know whether they are practicing that public speaking skills that we learned yesterday, all those different parameters of public speaking. They don't know that, but they by force, they are learning. They have to present, they have to be better, otherwise they cannot make it. But in Nepal, sadly, there is no the reward for being a great presenter. As long as they deliver the material, the content. Content is all we cared about in Nepal. And we would excuse, okay, yeah, he did great research, he put together a great thesis, but he just can't deliver, but we understand it, you know. So, but here in the US or in the Western world, you as a researcher, you have to deliver, you have to defend. So I think that's the little different, but just to kind of sum up what I was trying to say is this type of programs, Dr. Kodari and his team, that, you know, bringing this type of the opportunities to your students, which was not available 30 years ago when I was a student in that setting, or even when I was a faculty there 30 years ago. So I think the time has changed. And I'll give you one very quick example that you observed, what, a month or two ago, NAPA had that research mini grant symposium. I think you were there, right? I could not believe 30 years ago when I was teaching as a junior faculty in Rampur campus, our students, even the top students, were unable to really converse in English language. But the other day, one after another, they were giving better presentation than my own students here at Texas A&M University, and I'm not kidding. So time has changed. So your quality has improved considerably compared to what I had observed 30 years ago, but there is always room for improvement. Thank you.
Dr. Kadaria, yeah, I just would like to add a little bit on to your question. It is not easy to answer completely, but before dealing on your question, I have something like a different feeling. For example, we have a common tragedy of being a non-native speaker of English. If you want to express anything very clearly, the required things are you should have strong knowledge, that's obviously about the subject matter and the topic that you are going to address. And then you requires the rigorous preparation, that's also you can back it up. And with all those, the reading and understanding about what you are want to communicate, that's also okay. But along with these, what you also need is a command of language. And that is things that you cannot generalize to all the people. So I found something problem with all the Nepalese, or I should say the non-native speaker of the English. If you do not have a command over the English language, and it makes a lot of difficulties in terms of expression, in organizing the content, in terms of structuring, and how to speak out your component, and how to tell the people about the body index, all those things, these all are related things. So one thing I have been experiencing with my students in Nepal is, in spite of having a good knowledge in the subject matter and also with their interest and rigorous attempt, most of them are not really confident because also due to the lack of the command of the language. And the common problem is that's also not easily taken for Nepalese. If you go to America, for example, the average American would see that, oh, your tone is something like that. Yesterday we heard a story from Miss Upadhyaya Maya, how hard she had time in USA when she moved from one place, Bahrain, to the USA. That's really, really good example. Nobody would consider us that you don't have a good knowledge of English. But it's not common for other people. If an American goes to UK, and they talk in the American slang, the UK people would say, see, this American guy has to follow the things, but actually it's okay. They don't comment, they realize it very easily, that's okay. If they go to the Australia, and then Australian people would say, oh, I can't follow the accent of the American, but still that's acceptable. They can communicate well. But for the Nepali or the other people, they don't consider this thing. You guys have a very strong accent like a Scottish. You guys have something like, problem in identifying the good vocabulary, this and that. So, before really you want to talk about the subject matter, first try to make your language is good, comparatively good. Whatever you can express, you have well prepared, you have well composed. But that thing I found in gist is that we do have a lack of mind-making practices. I mean, you can't deliver straightforward without composing the things what you are going to talk in your mind. And that is what we call about the mind mapping, The planning is very, very important. If we could improve this thing, our presentation might be excellent. Thank you. That's just my impression.
Thank you, Deputa. And coming to Hitesh, so this public speaking seminar, we are trying to relate to science communication, and then we are trying to relate to scientists and then our students, science students. So, what are the opportunities of public speaking for researchers or scientists?
Good question, very good question. Thank you for asking that. Whether someone is a scientist, whether someone is a motivational speaker, or whether someone in high school or even in the kindergarten, right? Everyone has some message to deliver. Now, the goal is to sell that message, right? Whoever it is, they want to sell that message. And that goes back to my previous comment. What value are you providing and how are you building the relationship? So no matter what the person's role is, everybody will benefit by effective public speaking skills, because that will help them sell their message, sell their product, sell their research, sell their ideas to the world. And the world will fund them and provide more opportunities. So I think the public speaking formula applies to every situation.
Yeah, I have one question to Mr. Valal on the similar line. From especially from the agriculture, as you said, the scientists, they also need to know how to present them. But what they have a kind of mindset on their side is, after spending 3 years, 4 years in research, they really want to showcase what they found out, what they discovered. And oftentimes they may be struggling to, okay, how much information should I show to the world or show to the audience? How much is too much? because I don't want to bore my audience and miss the important part. So what kind of suggestion you want to give to them so that they can prepare? I know many people think, okay, research and public speaking are two different things. And we're trying to combine these two things and make it one better things here. So highlight a little bit more on that.
Of course, that's a very good question again. Now, research, right? The audience, we have to decide based on the audience, how much knowledgeable the audience is. If the audience is an expert, then we can go in much more detail. If audience is a new person, we can remain high level. So it will highly depend on the audience on how much you want to share. But in all the situations, the common element is that human connection, the ability to build that connection, right? And so give you an example, the screen that is shared right now, where I see the plant with the roots and the sand, right? Suppose it was a picture taken by you, you could say that, oh, I remember it was a Sunday morning, we all went there and we took that picture, and when we pulled the plant, oh my God, the smell, we loved the smell of that sand. Now, when you add that humanness,
Microphone is off. Yes.
Yeah, it is somehow you went mute. Yeah, I'm trying to unmute.
okay.
Yeah, you're good.
So I was saying when you add these humanizing factors into your presentations, small factors here and there, doesn't have to be a lot, but that makes adding those smile, adding those stories, a little bit small stories, that humanizes, and it helps for the audience to absorb it better. Audience's mind is like just like my puppy that is running here, it just gets distracted easily, you know? So keep them engaged by engaging their senses. So to give you an example, when I said the plant, I pulled the plant, and oh, the smell of the sand, I loved the smell of the sand. What I just did is I engaged the sense of smell of the audience, and that impacts the subconscious mind. The audience gets hooked into your topic, and you're able to present well, and you're able to sell your stuff well.
Thank you, Mr. Valara. That was wonderful feedback. You need to know your audience beforehand and prepare your materials accordingly. A layman person may not understand all technical terms and your complex presentation, whereas he wants a simple presentation, that he can understand. Let's hope the attendees, you got the message, what we're trying to provide to you. Dr. Correa, do you have any other question you want to ask before we go to audience to ask questions?
Professor Prajuli, I would like to say you are excellent science public speaker. I know, as far as I know, Professor Prajuli, you are a good science speaker. You have traveled all over the world to deliver many seminars. So, could you highlight 5 most important tips five important tips for public speaking that could be important for our students?
Absolutely, thank you. And I think the easiest thing for me would be go back to yesterday's presentations. I think that will be the simple answer. Because I mean, seriously, it had all the tips, but I'll just highlight few things, you know, that as a practitioner of public speaking, I shouldn't say public speaking, speaker of scientific presentations in a public forum. So I think that makes me kind of public speaker. You know, just few things. One, it will be repetitive, but we have to have the slides or the medium, whatever, whether it's a cartoon or the picture, it has to be a balance of the facts or the data or whatever, the text and the visual, because people's mind can only absorb so much of the material. That's why early on I was saying that you got to have one, maybe maximum of 2 take-home messages, but written in a very simplified language. Otherwise, it's not going to sync. So Dr. Gimire today did each slide, either he had graphs or the slides, the trend and the text, or pictures and the text. That is minimum. I mean, we have seen big slides with 25 lines of rows and 10 columns, and you just can't read anything, and you can certainly observe anything. And I might as well not show that. However, what you can do is you can show that data, like 200 data points, and say, okay, this is the wealth of data generated on this, but this number is only thing I want you to remember, and maybe bold that or make that pink or whatever. So people will say, okay, in that big chart, 239.6 was the number I need to know. So you have to have a directed information. I think Mr. Valala already said before that you got to have like an audience, you need to cater to the audience. So, and the other thing I would say is, I always told my students, and I still tell them, that you can have 30 slides. If you are a good presenter, good speaker, and if you have a good conceptualized slide set, you can give that in 10 minutes, and the same slide set of 30, you can deliver an 1 hour talk. That's the key. So just because it's a 15-minute talk, you don't have to reduce the number of slides. So that's the art of speaking. So you can deliver the same amount of information, and you need to be able to present in a way that you can finish in 15 minutes, you can advance the slide, or you can kind of dwell on one slide and emphasize and give on 15 minutes. So even though you said 5 points, I think we can go on, and for days and days we can give the tips. But the tip here, major tips are, you gotta have the presentation. I am always big on typo-free or consistency, so people, every slide, for example, I'll give you one example. Like for example, here is summary. The title summary is in a dark or the black text, and the rest is black. For me, I put that, I don't want to have too many colors, then it's a distraction. But the titles are all in one color. Say, you know, being Texas A&M professor, maroon would be the best for me. So I use maroon titles, and the rest is black. So that way, when they say maroon, okay, that's the title. So there are different ways, and it's the personal preference, how you do it. Sometimes people make bold, sometimes they don't. So, but, you know, once the very first and second slide tells people, hey, this guy has this standard, this format, then that mind always expects to see the maroon title. If you have maroon title first one, then blue title, and the audience will think, oh, is that the subheading of this? You see? So you got to have consistency. You need to, without telling audience, they need to know exactly what you are presenting. Does that make sense? So those are the few tips. But I'm gonna go back and you know, I don't know whether, I wish we had a graduate student in the panel. I would have challenged that person. But for example, you know I alluded to you, Dr. Gimire purposefully put at my request that I wanted him to follow up a little, okay? So let's go to page number 6, slide number 6, because we are teaching our students. Go to slide 6. Okay, go on. Okay, right here for now. So slide, okay, slide 5, okay. Look at slide 5 and go to slide 6. Okay, stay there for a while. And I'll just tell, I usually challenge students, but I'll just tell here. So the citation here is Gimire et al. 2018 Journal of Crop Improvement. I want to see that. Let's go to the previous slide. Haas et al. 1957. I have no earthly idea what that guy did. You see, those things are important. All right. So those students who are defending their thesis, I urge Dr. Kadaria and other professors that you need to tell them, hey, you need to give the most informative information. Haas et al. 1957, I have no idea. But the next one is says, oh, it was published in Journal of Crop Improvement or something like that. So those kinds of things. It may seem small, but I'll say that the colleagues like Mr. Balala and Mr. Bista, for them, this presentation was just, what is this? What is Dr. Mire talking about? Soil, plant, what is this? But he gave, first of all, his research received award. Excellent research.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Parajuli.
Yeah.
Now we have very short time
Sure.
due to time limit.
Yeah, I'll wrap up. Thank you.
No. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm coming to Professor Dekota.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, in the same way, I would like to say good public speaker of our EFU or internationally. He's a good public speaker. He's a well-renowned speaker, science speaker of Nepal and globally. So in this culture, you have been contributing EFU more than 35 years. In this context, you have good experiences of this public speaking, science speaking with the students. So in context of EFU, do you think this is important to incorporate in syllabus or academics or in practice? So what's the situation of EFU students in public speaking context? Would you like say something?
Okay.
Please add something about this context.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kadaria. Actually, this is a very relevant question also, because, you know, in terms of presenting the fact, whatever you have earned as a science part, and you like to disseminate to all the audiences, especially from the student perspective, you know, for every graduate students in his or her life, the presentation is one of the important parts of communication. So what I found in my experience is that syllabus is really very important to incorporate into somewhere. I think it's either is optional or is compulsory during the graduate, especially in Nepalese context, because it's not only a matter of teaching how to deliver, but there are lots of other things you can also simultaneously teach students about how to write assignment, for example, how to compose your assignment, you know, how to learn starting from a very basic things, how to start reading scientific journal articles. So, you know, it's really important to consider all those things. For example, how to review journal articles. What are the good journals? How to find them? What are the sources of literatures? These all things, you know, you can just develop into the good syllabus of technical writing and communication, and it must have a very good impact on the basis of my impression. What I'm talking is, but there is one thing. It should not be taken as something like an ordinary course that is based on reading, assignment, evaluation, marking, or grading. This course should be considered something like a guiding course to the students. And the students should realize that, hey, if I just take this course, and it will help me to significantly improve the overall quality part of the presentation, write-off, all those things. And considering these things into fact, lately I have introduced practical session for this course, and it is getting quite popular, especially in the rural development and development studies stream, and it's still optional at AFU to the other students, but I think it is one of the important to consider because it has several dimensions and it gives opportunities to students to realize what are the weaknesses and what are the areas to improve. That's it. Thank you. Hello?
Sir, you have to mute on your microphone.
Okay, sorry. Do you have more questions, or you want to go to the Q&A and have students ask questions to our panelists directly?
Yeah, I have one question. Mr. Imtiaz Ahmad Khan, he asks, I want to know, this question, I think it's related to Hitesh. I want to know, Imtiaz Ahmad Khan, I want to know during the public speaking, how to actually know whether our audience are being bored or having interest in it. Hitesh?
Yes, that is a great question. Now that is easy to know when we can see the people and not on the Zoom. But especially on the Zoom, if we have people on video, we can see who is doing what, who is just looking at the computer or just texting or taking a nap. And as you gain more experience, you will realize, as you gain more experience, you will have that, you will get to see who is paying attention and who is not. But it's easy in face-to-face situation than on the Zoom. So
there was one question I already answered in the text box, but I wanted to say it publicly. The question was whether we need to put a slide at the end with a whole bunch of references. I think we need to avoid that. In some institutions that has become the norm, but I think that doesn't serve absolutely no purpose really, because at the end, the person has already run out of time and buzzer has already gone off, and there are like 10 citations and very fine points nobody can read. So the best approach is what Dr. Ghimire showed. Okay, you just say the key presentations, key references. Okay, Haas et al. 1957, and then Journal of Soil Science of whatever. So that's the best way of citing, rather than listing a whole bunch of things at the end. Thank you.
And there's one question from the audience that's written. This is one of the questions I wanted to ask too. For the technical people, if their presentation goes maybe like a 15 or 20 minutes or even 30 minutes, for example, how can they insert some stories or relevant material, not directly to relate to its research, but can add some value so the audience will not be distracted? I mean, they still feel that, oh, something is coming. Let's enjoy this presentation. So how can they manage those things that will help, especially in the longer presentation?
I'll get back to that, but there is one question from Mr. Paudel, how to cite on slides with journal name as well. I think that's the, Dr. Ghimire, can you go to next slide, number 6? Okay, right here. So you have to cite like just like you would cite at the end of the presentation with the big citation slide. So Ghimire et al., year, and then Journal of Crop Improvement. You need to give enough so that people can make sense of that journal. So J is sufficient, it's journal. But if you say JCI, then we would not know. So this is the proper way of citing. Ghimire et al. 2018 Journal of Crop Improvement. I hope you kind of understood this. I'll go back to now Mr. Bista's question. If a presentation is long, before I even address that, I think the key of the presentation, what's the purpose? It's the impact. Whether you are giving elevator talk or giving a 30 minutes or plenary or keynote speech of 45 minutes, the bottom line or the fundamental premise of presentation is the impact. You have to, by the end of your presentation, you have to ask yourself, did you make an impact on your audience? Did you convey your message to the audience? Okay. So if it's a 30 minutes long presentation or 20 minutes long presentation, and after 4 or 5 minutes, people start using their things, you see, we have seen that in the audience because they lost interest. So you have to kind of, not the off-color joke or anything like that, but you have to kind of bring something. You have to have that masala there. You have to have some spices. you know, you shouldn't be way off of the topic, but you have to say, okay, even it's okay to throw a cartoon or some things that people will crack a laugh or something like that. That will kind of at least break their texting or checking Facebook in the middle of presentation. So it's okay, and then revert back to the main theme. So it's a kind of art of presentation, and it's a preaching to the choir. I'm talking these things to Toastmaster guys. Come on. So I don't have that skill. I don't have that qualification even to say this. So no, good question. Thanks.
Okay, I think next question goes to Bilal. I think this makes more sense to him. The audience is asking, you know, how important is the body language, posture, vocal variety? So those are the things that we often preach in, I mean, most of the time we preach in Toastmaster settings. So in this such a technical presentation, how important those factors would be?
Goes back to the same point of humanizing your speech and not making it as a radio show or just a TV show where a robot is speaking without moving, but just humanizing a little bit, you know, just occasional hand gesture. It adds value, it adds flavor. It's like the masala in the curry, you know. So just importance of body language is there. It definitely enhances, it adds beauty to your presentation. It makes it more digestible, it makes it more understandable, more connectable.
And there was
let me do some volunteering. I'd like to say tell one joke. It's about the always complaining. Every 10 years, the monk in the monastery are allowed to break their, for a second before saying, they're allowed to break their, for a second before saying food bad. 10 years later, he says, after 10 years, they allow only after 10 years to, you know, break their speech or complain. So 10 years later, he says, bed is hard. Only 2 words, bed hard. It is the big day. A decade later, he gives the head monk a long stare and says, I quit. So I'm not surprised. The head monk says, you have been complaining ever since you got here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Panta. That was a nice ad. Here's a question from Sissy Sama, who is asking, while preparing manuscript, many students get confused about the summary, conclusion, results, and recommendations. Can we get insights on it? What points should be included on the specific headings? So I think this question goes to Dr. Prajla.
Yeah, there are many other questions I read. I'm reading those, and I'm trying to kind of put them together because we are running out of time. But
yeah, that'll be very nice of you. Thank you, Dr. Prajla.
One is results and discussion. It has to have come from students, I assume. In our journals, results and discussions, they vary with journal types. Some journals, they allow the authors to put results and discussion together, meaning that you write results and discuss as you go and provide references and all that. So the section will be results and discussion. But many journals, they demand that you got to put results, only results, what you found, and then discuss under different topic called discussion. So if journal allows, and my thought, because I'm editor-in-chief, for God's sake, that I better know what this is, but we are learning every day. No matter how much work we do, we are learning every day new things and improving on our skills. But easiest thing will be if journal allows, then put results and discussions together. So it's easier to write results and discuss and write results and discuss and kind of continue. That's the easier approach. But many times journal doesn't allow to do that. And also the summary, conclusion, you know, these are journal specific. Some journals requires you have to have the summary and also have take home message or conclusion. So there is not a kind of you know, once you fit all type of things, so it's a journal specific. And I have another question I read here which deserves an answer also. Question was, if there are relevant data tables, do we need to put small tables like a, you know, small tables in one slide? No. Unless the presentation dictates that you cannot submit any more than 9 slides, then you play those games. If not, it's always easier, it's more convenient, and it's better to have more slides, but once a single slide should have as few as possible the information or the facts you can put. I mean, if you have like a 3 bullet points, that's much easily conveyed to the audience than if you have like a 10 bullets. Even if you are kind of changing like a, you know, come and go or color and so forth, you can play those games, but don't put any more than 3 to 5 bullets. And then table, maybe small 2 tables, but certainly not. The bottom line is no cluttering on the slide. Then immediately you lose the audience. So those are the few questions that I want to quickly touch on.
Okay, Dr. Prasad, thank you. There are some interesting questions posted in the chat room, not on the Q&A, but I want to bring that to Mr. Hitesh's attention. It's more of a, on the presenter's side, let's say they are presenting and all of a sudden they started getting a tough questions. And now they don't know the answer or they go into the panic mode. So how they can handle such situation? It's more of a crisis management kind of situation for the student or presenter. How can they manage those situations? Any suggestions you want to offer to them?
Absolutely brilliant question. I would not call it a crisis situation. One of the qualities as a speaker that we should always strive to have is authenticity, being authentic and true. In the moments when we do not have an answer, it is perfectly okay to say that I do not know. I will be happy to look into it and get back to you. So nobody knows everything. There are times when we don't have an answer, and we can actually acknowledge the question, saying it is a great question. I appreciate you asking it. I do not have an answer right now. However, I will be more than happy to look into it and get back to you. So that is one way to handle that situation. Or one more way is that I do not know the answer. Anybody from the audience would like to take this. See if there is another subject matter expert in the audience who has the answer and want to contribute. So these are the 2 ways we can handle this situation.
Okay, from faculty perspective, I know as a student, they are presenting, they are already in a stress, pressured. If I do any mistakes, my points might be reduced, I might get a lower grade. So they are already constant pressure at that moment. So if they answer that way, from evaluator's perspective, Dr. Prazali, is that okay for the presenter to do that way? Now, I'm asking from the technical side of the point, the technical side of the aspect. I mean, as a faculty, you may expect them to know many things since they did the research.
Mm-hmm. Could you reiterate that question one more time?
The question is, if they got a tough question and they could not answer at that moment, what Mr. Valala suggested, okay, I don't know the answer at the moment, but I'll get that answer for you later. Or he can ask the audience if they know that answer.
I'll start saying that last thing you want to do as a scientist or a professional, that you pretend that you know something you don't know. That's the last thing you want to do. And it's I mean, seriously, because that's the worst thing we can do as an educator. You know, a professor is an educator. So we shouldn't be lying to our students. Audiences are students. So it's okay. We aren't supposed to know everything. You aren't supposed to know everything. So the easiest thing with you, okay, I have no idea about this question. I never came across with this. If anybody knows, go ahead and answer. If not, I'll get back to you. That's the best answer. Okay. So no, I completely concur with that. But I see a few questions here, Mr. Bista, if I can address.
Yes, please, please.
One is, you know, saying that, okay, are you feeling bored if people are just doing texting and all that? Is it okay to say, are you feeling bored? Or are you with me in my presentation? You know, that was the question. I think, I mean, there are different ways, but certainly don't say, are you feeling bored? Because that's a negative thing. Just, you know, say something sarcastic. Hey, you know, I see a lot of people are enjoying my presentation or something. Try to embarrass them more than saying, are you bored? So you just have to kind of, you know, the other effective way of breaking that boredom is change the tone. You know, if you are going to, okay, let's see, or, you know, you got to kind of change the pitch, do something, or walk off of the podium, or do something. You gotta dance a little, you know. So you need to then say, okay, are you guys with me, or something like that. So those are the approaches I would say will break that. There was one.
That's a wonderful answer, Dr. Pradali. I know this is where the public speaking skill comes handy for any presenters. They know that moment and how to handle that moment. So
there is one very important question. I think this question probably should go to Mr. Balala, but I'll attempt. The question is, what if the audience mocks you as a speaker and they just kind of they have disrespect to you? Then I mean, I don't know, but I'll just say that if such a thing is encountered in my, you know, we rarely encounter that kind of thing because people are embarrassed to do that. Even though I'm a lousy speaker, there is a general tendency to respect a speaker. Okay, so but if there is such a thing, then you would simply say, okay, are you guys doing okay? Or are you following my presentation, or something like that? So I think that will kind of give them notice that, hey, this guy kind of knows that we are kind of gossiping. So Mr. Balala?
Yeah, and first of all, you are not a lousy speaker. You are a good speaker. So this situation happens very rarely. 99% of the time, people are there and they want you to succeed. And just to give you an example, if I make a mistake here, I am pretty sure out of the 255 people, nobody's going to laugh at me or make fun of me. You will support me that, oh, okay, he's trying, he tried, something went wrong and corrected. Now, on rare occasions, if someone is very adamant and stubborn and doesn't want to back out, they just ask question after question. The best way to get out from that is, can we take these offline so that I can finish up the presentation? I would love to chat with you. Let's take it offline and let's discuss in more detail.
Okay, I have a question to Professor Devkota.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. This is public speaking is art of life, and as an agriculturist, we have a responsibility of technology transfer. This our technology, new technology, we have to transfer to farmers level. And then, is it necessary to incorporate this public speaking skill to extension worker, or how government should give attention to this public speaking issue to their staffs or to their government officials or university level?
Right. Thank you, Dr. Kadaria. I think it's an equally important question for a country like Nepal, where still extension activities is one of the major area of communication and the government service paradigm. So in that sense, it is often important, you know, to deal about these public speaking ideas, concern, and then the ways how you can better communicate the things to the farmer, because there are variation in the farmer's understanding level. There are different types of farmers. And if a presenter or a speaker do not realize those differences and just come up with the common point of delivery, sometimes the communication might not be effective. So there are several theories, I should say, several guidelines, several principles, and these are changing, you know. So with the modern facilities, modern tools, modern techniques, and then ideas, if we incorporate those things into syllabus or some kind of teaching activities, maybe that would be very useful for our farmers. That's my just a very brief point of concern, but I think it needs a thorough discussion actually.
Okay, I think we are
I have a
close
very
to the program.
session.
So,
I
yeah,
have
do you have more questions?
one important question to organizer as well. Anyone can give me this answer, you know. So, as an organizer like Bachu, Maya, or Bilasji, you are different profession. You are you are getting good position in US, but why are you giving more time in public speaking? What's the result behind it? So we people, we are as a university professor or different profession. This is too late, but we are very much interested to learn from today. So what's the reason behind this?
Okay,
Why you
I'll share my
this in US? What's the trend? Why this you are you are getting higher position in bank, in as a software engineer, you are getting a big position in company, but you are giving more time in this public speaking. So what's the reason behind this? And then this is very curious to know. This is huge.
Okay, that's a wonderful question. No, let me chime in on that one. That's a very wonderful question. I had exactly same view 4 years ago when I did not even think about joining the Toastmasters and practicing my public speaking skill there. Because we are technical people, sit behind the computer, do our work, whatever comes our way, finish the job, we are done. That's the kind of mindset we used to have. I mean, I used to have until 4 years ago. The reason I changed it because, I mean, doing a job and doing a job effectively are two different things. So if you have a good communication skills, your job becomes much, much easier. And that one I have experienced in past 4 years. My communication with my managers, with my colleagues, with my clients, everything has improved ever since I joined Toastmasters. That's the only reason. I mean, you can see many unseen advantages that you can enjoy after joining the Toastmasters because it raises your confidence level. When you are effectively communicating to anybody you are communicating with, when you are talking in confidence, yes, I know my subject. I know what I'm talking about. I know how to communicate with others. That raises your confidence level. And your communication is completely in different level when you are confidently speaking. So those kind of things, it's worthwhile spending this time because you're valuable, because you are investing on yourself. You are not investing on anybody else. You are not doing favor to anybody else. You are just investing on yourself. The Toastmaster that's what I define it. Vilasi, Devendraji, you also joined Toastmasters. Balala, he's a pro. I mean, he's our mentor also in Toastmasters. He can explain a little bit more on that one. But that's how I view Toastmasters.
Let me tell my experience, right? Bank experience similar like his, but I, as a CPA, I advise startup companies a lot. For the last 20 years, so that's what we've been doing. Many have, many people came to my door to start a business. Some have succeeded and some had failed. See, when somebody succeeds, I try to analyze them, why this guy succeeded, especially Nepalese. And when Nepalese come to the United States, basically we are in the same boat. $4,000 or $5,000 maximum money. And there's no, source political help to help you anything, no referral, nothing. You start your own business from the scratch. Some succeed, some don't. So I always fascinate people who do succeed. One thing, the quality I've always found on those people who have succeeded is their communication skill. When you make or break, they are the ones succeeding who have good communication skills. So that's why I have to learn it for myself too, because, as everybody has said before me, that they question your qualifications if you can utter from your mouth. If you cannot say, they think like maybe he doesn't know. So to overcome that, to fight that, this local area, plus the first time they don't even trust to begin with, right? The way we appear. So we have to project ourselves and to stand up in self with the confidence and the talking point, the way we deliver our speech, the storytelling. That's what I say, storytelling. So when you go and talk to them, shake their hand, in 15 seconds, they decide whether I want to hire this guy or not. So that's why, as a person, you might say, how come this guy do it? If you see me in front of clients, I act like I'm really, really good. Those projections, I try to make it, that's why I'm very into this Toastmaster and public speaking.
Maybe I can share a little bit, on my own experience as well. So when we come from Nepal and then start here. Sorry?
Please.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I also encounter that kind of situations. Typically I am a shy person. I don't want to talk in a public. And then, but here, when you talk to a farmer, you are doing A quality or plus quality research. But if you are not communicating with the farmers or the common public, that means they consider you didn't do anything. You are just coming to US, you wanted to be in US, but you don't do anything good for the country or the community. So that is how I started. I need to really know the way how to talk to the people. For example, if the same talk, if I am giving to the farmers, this is more than 30-minute content, like in some public speaking, earlier panelist mentioned, you want to expand more. Then when you go on technical contents, if all scientists I know, those are professors, maybe 10 minutes, we can wrap up this talk. But the public part and then your storytelling is very, very important. Even in Nepal, I think that is more important because another instance, I got Mr. Baburam Khanal here, and then he realized research in Nepal is more or less similar. Field research is more or less similar in Nepal and in US. But what we go through after the research is done, this preparation, data curing, and then presentation, that makes a big difference between students in Nepal and students here.
Thank you, Dr. Kamire. Quick remarks from Mr. Valala on the same line.
Yes. I want everyone to pay close attention to what Mr. Bilas said, that the decisions are made in the first 15 to 20 seconds. You have a very short window of time. Everything matters: how you dress, how you carry yourself, how you are sitting, how you are talking. First 20 seconds are very important. And that's what I was saying in the presentation also. Start with a bang. Say something that catches everyone's attention, because that is when your audience will decide whether they want to listen to your speech or they want to do something else. So major key takeaway, first 20 seconds, very, very important in one-on-one interactions or public speaking or any interaction. So thank you, Mr. Bilas, for sharing that.
There is one question.
Thank you, Mr. Valala. Devendra Sir, do you want to add something? And I'll come to Dr. Brazil again.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Dr. Kadaria, for the great question. Yes, why, right? When I started as an engineer, I knew a lot, I could do a lot, and I designed the systems that are saving companies millions of dollars. And when I grew up in the leadership position, I had to talk with a lot of different executive directors and the CIOs and CFOs. And when going in front of them, I had to tell them something that they could relate to. And initially, I was like a technical guy, and all of my talks were more of a technical. And I was not able to connect with them, right? Because I was more technical. So I had to learn this public speaking skills so that I can engage them, engage with the audiences, and then I can cater. Like if I'm talking with a CFO, I want to talk about the numbers and dollars, right? But if I'm talking with the teachers, I want to talk about how all these technologies that we are investing are going to help the kids. So this public speaking skill is really helping me connect with the audience and try to bring the values so that they can trust me, not just the guy that is just sitting there in the management position. I want to connect them so that I can better serve them. Thank you for that wonderful question.
Thank you, Devendra sir. Dr. Parazali, do you want to add a closing remark on this one?
Yeah, there was one question. There are many, but one deserved addressing right away. The question is, I'll verbatim, I'll read. I have been hearing introverts cannot really excel much on stage. No, they can excel. They are just different types of people. So extroverts are a type and introverts are another type. So as long as you have confidence in your content, confidence in your knowledge and skills, you just present differently than another guy or gal who is just dancing across the stage. So really, I mean, the introvert, extrovert, those terminologies don't have anything to do with your ability to be a good speaker. It's just a different way that you would present. So that's how I address that question. But of course, the Toastmasters will give better answer or maybe more correct answer. So
Yes,
that,
I would.
yeah. But I will kind of add to the how critical or how important the public speaking skills are. In another way, better communication skills. Public speaking skills I equate as better communication skills. Why it's important? It's a salesmanship. If you are it's like in Nepalese saying, if you are a good salesman, you can
sell anything.
Yeah, so if you are a poor public speaker, you cannot sell yourself, you cannot sell your ideas, you cannot communicate effectively. So it's vitally important in private world, banks and NGO and so forth. The public speaking is a major attribute there for success, for your success. But in academia, for example, defending a thesis, and okay, your professor helped and you got a degree, but you are on your own to go and give a seminar to land in a job. If you are not a good speaker, it's pretty tough to land in a job. And through the ranks, when you promote and so forth, every way in your life, every step of the way, you gotta have that public speaking skills, either making or breaking. So it's that important. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Parazali. Any last minute thought, because we went a little over our time?
Yeah.
Yes,
But
go, Mr. Bilal.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes,
sorry.
Dr. Devkota, go for it.
Yeah, sorry. I just found a very important queries from the participants. I just would like to say something about that. It's about whether it's important to draw conclusions out of objectives or results. And my answer is, it is pretty similar, but very, very genuine question is this, because they are nested. For example, without objective, you don't go for research, and without research, you can't draw any kind of results. So what we say is, your conclusions should be based on the very important results, but that must be reflected and that must not cross the boundary of your objective. So they are interrelated in one sense, but it's a very tricky question to answer. So to me, what is the missing thing is, most of the people, when they draw a conclusion, they only limit their conclusion to the upper section of the results only, and the latter half of the conclusion should be some kind of message flow on basis that should have some implication message, and then only it can be considered as a conclusion. Often students have some problem there. I think we can talk it later also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Devkota. So, Balala, you want to add the last comment?
Yes, one last comment. The question about the introverts that someone asked, beautiful question, and I get asked that question a lot. Introverts have amazing talent and depth in thinking, great gifts. Many of the successful people are introverts. Mark Zuckerberg is introvert. Elon Musk is introvert. There are so many people introverts. Nothing wrong with that. There are so many strengths. I would recommend everyone to read a book. I shared the link on the messenger here. It's called, the book's name is Quiet. It says The Power of Introverts in the World That Can't Stop Talking. Really nice book. It highlights the strengths of introverts, and I would highly recommend everyone to read that. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Valala. It's a wonderful discussion. I know we went a little over time on this one, but it was all worth it. I believe we tried to answer, our panelists tried to answer as many questions that was raised in chat box and Q&A. I know, I mean, there may be a lot of questions we may not be able to answer now, but we'll try to answer in a different forum later on. Mr. Vilas, we want to add something? You raised hand.
No, I would like to conclude now.
Okay, that's great. So let's summarize this. Thank you all panelists for the wonderful feedback and input to our students, researchers, or graduate students. This is the actual objective we had in our mind when we designed this program. So I think we came close to achieving that goal. If not, we achieved it. And tomorrow's program is going to be even interesting. We have set for 1 hour. It might go to 1.5 hours, depending on the student participation. Because when I was talking to Dr. Farazili offline, he said, hey, your program is kind of designed in such a way that you have a theory, like an educational session, then you have a lab test. Now you are going into the practical test. So tomorrow is a practical test. Whether you learn anything from day 1 and day 2 will be reflected in day 3. So be prepared. We have sent certain selected individuals or participants to give it a try tomorrow. Hopefully you received our email. Be prepared. We gave you topics to prepare for that for tomorrow. And we are looking for your participation, active participation tomorrow. That's how you are going to learn. Otherwise, the whole effort we put together might not be fruitful unless you try yourself. With that said, I'd like to conclude today's program, and we'll all see you tomorrow, same time. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone, and have a good day in Nepal.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, all organizers. It's really good time for all of us. I hope we all enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Good night. Good day.